Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the division of complex numbers. We're going to start with an example. It says, what is each quotient? All right. Now, in order to divide complex numbers, it's a pretty similar process to essentially dividing radical, like when we wanted to rationalize radical denominators. So we used to multiply the denominator with its conjugate. Similarly, over here, we have to multiply the denominator, which is right there, by its conjugate. Now, a conjugate is essentially the opposite of what you have at the bottom in terms of its sign. So, for example, 3i would become negative 3i, right? And then 4i would become negative 4i. And then, for example, let's say you have 5i, that would become negative 5i. And if it's negative, it obviously becomes positive. Now, let's go ahead and see how we can do this on this question. All right, so we just write the question down. 9 plus 12i divided by 3i would multiply with negative 3i on this side and negative 3i on this side. We're multiplying both sides with negative 3i. So that would mean that on the bottom, we get negative 3i times 3i would be 9i squared with a negative 9i squared. And then just multiply these two. So you get negative 27i plus 36i squared. Now, an important thing happens over here. Sorry, my bad. This is negative 36i squared. An important thing happens over here, and that is that what is the value of I squared? Now, we know that I is essentially radical negative 1. So I square is just the square root of negative 1, or radical negative 1, multiplied by itself 2 times. So like to the power of 2, as the power suggests. So if you do this, you just get negative radical 1, but to the power of 2. So this cancels out with the square root, leaving you with negative 1, which means that I square is essentially equal to negative 1. Now, if we apply that over here, a bunch of stuff starts to change. So negative 27i remains as is. There's no way to, it's already in its simplest form. But 36i squared, you get negative 36 times negative 1, because I squared is negative 1. And on the bottom, you get negative 9 times negative 1. Let's scroll down. So that means that over here, we will have negative 27i plus 36 over positive 9. Now, can this be very further simplified? Yes, since both the numbers on the denominator or on the top are divisible by 9, which would mean that we would give it essentially 27 divided by 9 would be negative 3i, and 36 divided by 9 would be positive 4. All right, now, how about we go ahead and take a look at some more complex examples. Let's go down. So this is one of the most common ones, but sometimes we also get some type of question like this. For example, 5 minus 2i over 3 plus 4i. Now, it's the same process here, but except you just have to multiply it by the conjugate of what's here at the bottom, which would be, if, for example, if you have negative plus 3 plus 4i would become 3 minus 4i. And then if you have 3 minus 2i, that would become 3 plus 2i. So the sign is essentially changing. And if it's something like negative 10 plus I, that would become, the negative here doesn't change, so it just remains negative 10 minus I. It's only the sign in the middle that changes. Now, if you multiply this by its conjugate, you get 3 minus 4i on the bottom and 3 minus 4i on the top. Now, notice that we're talking about the difference of two perfect squares on the bottom. So you can either expand this 1 by 1 or just write it as, we're using the rule essentially. If you guys remember, if a minus b multiplied by a plus b, you can write this down as a squared minus b squared. So here I can write the bottom as 3 to the power 2 minus 4i to the power of 2. All right, so that means that on the top, I just have to expand, but on the bottom, that would be much easier for me. So on the top, I will have 15 minus 20i minus 6i plus 8i squared. All right, so the top simplifies into 15 minus, I just did this one by one, by the way, using the FOIL rule. If you're not familiar with it, go ahead and check out my video on expansion. So 20i minus 6i would be negative 26i, and plus 8 times negative 1, because I squared is negative 1. All right. On the bottom, however, I will have 9 minus 16i squared, which is negative 1, making the 16 positive. So on the top, 15 minus 8 would become, essentially, you would have 15 minus 8 on the top. So you will have 7 minus 26i divided by 9 minus 16 times the negative would be, which would make it positive. So 9 plus 16, which would become 25. And the final answer would be 7 minus 26i over 25. Now you can go ahead and separate the fractions and write them as 7 over 25 minus 26i over 25. But you could also leave it in the form that you had before. Thank you for watching, and good luck.